and welcome to the County Executive's weekly media briefing. This week, County Executive Mark Elridge is out of town, but standing in for him today is our Chief Administrative Officer, Rich Madalino, who will be running the meeting today. I want to introduce some of our guests that we have on today. Today we have on Sherry Lee, who is the Media Relations Manager for WMATA. We also have our Director of the Office of Emergency Management and Homeland Security, Luke Hodgson. We also have Jacob Newman, who is Regional Service Center Director, who will also be on today. And we also have our normal cast of characters who are here to assist with things related to health and human services, Dr. Bridgers, Dr. Davis, and we also have Sean O'Donnell here as well to talk about those issues. Media, if you have any questions, please make sure that you raise your hands and let us know that you're ready to speak. Also, if you want to record, now's the time to go ahead and do so. So before we go ahead and get into the questions, I am going to hand it over to CAO Madalino to lead us off. Mr. Madalino.
Thank you, Barry, very much. Thank you for everyone joining us this morning. The county executive is in San Diego at a life sciences conference where he's trying to recruit more businesses for the county. Obviously, finding businesses and growing the economy is a key initiative and priority for the Elridge administration. So that's why the county executive is unable to join us. Fortunately, he was in contact with us last night. We were keeping him up to date throughout all the storms so that he knew exactly what was happening in the county. Yesterday was certainly an exciting day with multiple tornadoes reported. The National Weather Service is out there trying to confirm the tornadoes and the type of tornadoes that we saw. Clearly, the pictures demonstrate that if the tornadoes didn't hit the ground, they came very close to it in the Poolsville area, in the Gaithersburg area. Certainly, Gaithersburg is where there's the most reported damage at the moment. So we're very fortunate to have no fatalities reported in the county last night. There were some injuries, but fortunately they remained quite minor. While Poolsville and Gaithersburg did see the tornadoes, other parts of the county, Montgomery Village only, were also under tornado warnings and certainly dealt with high winds. Right now, we are out assessing damage throughout the county, continuing the cleanup. I want to start off by thanking everyone with the county government and the community, with the Gaithersburg City government and the Gaithersburg Police Department, everyone who was involved in the cleanup. Certainly, the Maryland State Highway Administration and our state government. I know the governor's office was on the phone with me quite early to make sure everything was okay and offering whatever assistance we needed. So it was great to have that partnership with the Moore Miller administration. So first and foremost, thank you to everyone who played a role last night in ensuring the community was safe. Special shout outs go out to our 911 dispatchers for getting crews and emergency workers out quickly to wherever there was a demand. The firefighters who responded throughout the county, especially those who were working to pull people out of some of the damaged homes. There were 35 storm-related calls over a span of 2.5 hours last night. Certainly the 911 center lit up during the most intense part of the storm, but fortunately then the calls dropped off. We've seen 5 trees down on homes, 10 downed wires across the county. Some road closures that were handled by the Montgomery County Department of Transportation. We saw just a maximum of nearly 1,000 power outages. So that sounds like a lot, but it reflects less than 0.25% of the customers from our 3 utilities across the county. There's more work to be done today to fix down wires and certainly trees, and for a handful of people across the county, the cleanup, I'm sure, will go much longer as they have to deal with the damage. So always important to note, avoid downed wires and report them safely to the utility company, to the non-emergency police line, unless, of course, you see a wire that is sparking or causing a fire or bouncing and there's clear damage. Then risk, please call 911 at that point. Always assume a downed wire is energized and dangerous, so don't play with them. Please always be safe about kids and pets around wires. And again, if you need to report a downed wire, please call the non-emergency line, 301-279-8000, 301-279-8000. So, it's very important to note that last night's storms are a sign of the impact of climate change. I know for Dr. Stoddard, Mr. Hodgson, for those of us who work on these issues, it's clear that climate change, while we spend a lot of time probably talking about temperature and understanding how temperatures are changing here and around the world, they are sparking more severe storms. And you're seeing it through incidents like last night. You're seeing it over the last several years. While the last month has seen plenty of rainy days, we are seeing more intense storms, which is why it is so critical for people to pay attention to the alerts that we're sending, because, for those of us in this area who may think, oh, tornadoes, we don't really see tornadoes, we don't see those types of storms. We now have to get used to the fact that we are going to see tornadoes. And when the National Weather Service sends out an alert about tornadoes, you need to take it seriously. That's why it is so critical. We ask everyone in the community, and certainly our partners in the news media, to let people know how important it is to sign up for the Alert Montgomery system so that they get warnings early and often. I know, talking with Dr. Stoddard, who happened to be, not that we're insinuating that tornadoes follow him, but he happened to be in part of the county, coincidentally, where the storms were hitting last night, and he got the target alert. So it's important to note, it's not, yes, we'll send out an alert to the whole county. Alerts go out about warnings and watches, but really, when there is a tornado being tracked, we have the ability to send targeted messages out to people in the most impacted areas, and those messages were going out regularly during the evening. The system worked well. So now with that, I didn't know if Earl and Luke wanted to say something.
I'll let you go first, Luke, if you like.
Sure. So good morning, everybody, and thank you, Rich, for the introduction and explaining what happened last night. I think it's important to note that yesterday's storm was very volatile. We had no forewarning whatsoever that the storm was coming. So a lot of people are wondering why we weren't under a tornado watch, and I think most of the people in Maryland are wondering the same thing right now, as are we. So we'll get those answers in time. But we did have a very astute meteorology focused emergency management specialist who saw this storm early on pop up in Northern Virginia, noticed the volatility of it, and that it had the propensity to become a funnel system. And he's got us moving in that right direction. So our team was working to prepare for those impacts when Leesburg reported that they had a tornado, likely a tornado touchdown. We were preparing for that to come into the Poolsville area. And then, as we know from there, we did see some activity in Poolsville. We saw a number of impressive funnel cloud pictures come through. Those will be confirmed today, whether or not that in fact was a tornado and the severity thereof. And then simultaneously, we had another system pop up in Gaithersburg, and that just the nature of it being more populated and there being more homes there, we saw a lot of damage and a number of calls there. So Rich hit on the number of calls we hit. Overall, we were very lucky, given the fact that we had no forewarning for this. People responded very well to the warnings that they received. and we hit at some areas such as Poolsville that are not heavily populated. I think Rich is exactly right that we live in an area where we all too often assume that we're immune to many of the weather patterns that threaten the rest of the country and the world. Yesterday was a reminder that we can and do get severe weather at times. So it's all the more important for everyone to have a plan and be prepared for those storms. We have a number of resources on our website, which is Montgomery County MD/OEMHS. You can just search Montgomery County Emergency Management if that's easier for you. And there we have a number of tools to walk you through making a kit, making a plan, developing an emergency cache that you can hold on to in the immediate aftermath of the storm, keep you fed, medicated if you need to, hydrated, and so forth. So it's very important that you sign up for those alerts. It's very important that you heed those warnings. It's very important that you take it on as your personal responsibility to prepare for these types of storms, because they are not simply just not going to happen here. They can and do happen, and we're moving into a very stormy season right now. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Dr. Stoddard.
Yeah, I just want to add a couple things. So first off, under the leadership of County Executive Elrich, Montgomery County has really leaned forward into the climate adaptation space. Obviously, we focus a lot of time on mitigating climate change, but we also recognize the climate is already changing. And even if we take the dramatic steps we need to reduce carbon emissions, it will still continue to change for some number of years thereafter. And so climate adaptation has been a focus of both the Office of Emergency Management, but also other agencies across county government. And that's most clearly reflected in our investments in things like flood sensors, which obviously were not as relevant in this particular event, but also Montgomery County championed the construction of the statewide mesonet, which will be really useful in years forward, better understanding how weather is going to impact the state of Maryland, but also how weather conversion over time is to climate, and how climate is actually shifting both in terms of wind and temperature. Obviously, the homes in Gaithersburg were very severely impacted. Our Department of Health and Human Services has already been in connection with the city of Gaithersburg, and will be working with the residents to address their long-term needs. They will be displaced for some time. Those houses are severely damaged. And also the Red Cross will be assisting in that process as well. And the last thing I do want to do is want to echo what our Chief Administrative Officer has said and thank the emergency responders, not just those who were on the forefront between fire rescue, our police department, Gaithersburg City Police, but also those who you don't see very often, which is the 911 calls, the center takers who are taking and triaging and prioritizing calls, and the staff that came into the Emergency Operations Center and helped coordinate some of the response efforts overall. Those are the people you don't often see, but they obviously were enjoying time with their families and had to come in to work as well and help respond to support our residents. So with that, that's it for me.
Okay,
well, thank you, Earl. So yesterday evening, Earl, Luke, and I were all at the Emergency Operations Center. For the general public to know, if reporters are interested, we do have in our Emergency Operations Center, which is combined with our Emergency Communications Center and our Transportation Management Center, we were able to keep a look at the road network and to see where there were problems across our road network. We're able to see what's happening with all of our traffic lights, because clearly traffic lights having problems are a major issue. So when you think about the investments that we've made over time to have a resilient emergency operations center, to have the Alert Montgomery system to be able to warn people what's happening, the work that the utilities have done to ensure the resiliency of our electricity network and grid. So a lot of things worked well. Earl mentioned the flood sensors. While there wasn't flooding last night, clearly earlier this spring we had a major flood event. Where in the past we have seen people get trapped in cars as roads have become inundated at certain choke points around the county. And that flood warning system worked. We were able to close roads quicker and keep the number of incidents to a minimum. So it's important to note that we are consistently investing in ways to deal with the repercussions of climate change. But it's also important to note that we as a community, as a country, as a globe, have a lot of work to do about climate change and not to miss that. opportunity. Again, we have a climate change officer who would be happy to sit down with any reporter and go over our climate action plan. Clearly, Governor Moore just 2 days ago, yesterday, issued an executive order about dealing with climate in the state. So there's a lot of news and progress and investments going on in this field, and I think that helped with some of the positive outcomes that we saw last night. So with that, I'm going to pause, let Barry open it up to questions.
Thank you. Any questions from the media regarding last night's storm? Jenny from Local 360, go ahead.
Y'all know me, I have a bunch of questions. First of all, I know you had said, Rich, that there had been some minor injuries. Do we know how many people were injured?
I think, Earl, I think I'm correct in saying we had 5 people transported.
Okay.
Yep.
And I think there was only one person hospitalized.
Yeah, well, I think that when they were transported, they were all evaluated. I think even the person who was it was considered a trauma because they were pinned. They didn't know if there was any internal injuries. They did not have any additional internal injuries, and I believe all 5 have been released from the hospital at this point. Okay,
great, thank you. Kind of going off of that, do we know what you may have said this and I missed it? I was taking notes, but I think I have the. We had 3 collapsed homes. Is that the correct number? And do we know how many people have been displaced?
It wasn't 3 collapsed homes. The one home was, the roof was collapsed in for sure. The other 2, these were, I think all 3 had trees into the roof, which means a portion of the roof was crushed, but they weren't collapses in the same way. And so one other place did have the person did need to be assisted to leave, but that was largely because they were uncertain about the structural integrity of their front door because the tree was laying on the area of the house right at the front door. And so they were escorted out by fire rescue. The other person was able to leave their house on their own. And so it was only moderate damage to those other 2.
Okay, good. And do we have an estimate of the number of people who were displaced?
Yeah, so obviously there were 5 in the house that was the primary collapse area, and I think that there were I want to say 2 or 3 in one of the homes and only 1 in the third home.
Okay, great. You can, if somebody else has questions, you can come back to me. I'm going through my list, but.
Okay, we'll come back to you. Are there any other questions from the media? And while you're thinking, Jenny, we can go back to you.
Great, thank you. I know you all talked a little bit about the emergency alert system and the localization of that. Did everything go as it should with that system last night? Especially in terms of the fact that this was not an expected event.
Yeah, so I'll weigh in here because our office is largely responsible for those emergency alerts. And I'll tell you, there's 2 different types of alerts that come out in Montgomery County. One is something that's generated from our office, and that's the Alert Montgomery system. That's something that you can subscribe to. It's free. You can choose which types of alerts you get, and it's also geolocated based on your address that you enter in there. So sometimes you will see alerts that come through there depending on what services you've signed up for. In a situation like yesterday where we have a very high intensity storm that comes up very quickly, what you're probably going to see first is the wireless emergency alert, so the WIA. And that's where you hear sort of like the Amber Alert tone that's very loud and disruptive as it's supposed to be to gather your attention. We know a number of people that were in the polygon designated by the National Weather Service as the tornado warning area have already reported that they received that. They had no issues with that. There's a lot of questions elsewhere on why didn't we get an alert? And the reason is because it is very, very specifically targeted to a geolocation. So when the National Weather Service issues a tornado warning in this case, it could be a flood warning, it could be a thunderstorm warning, any of those 3 warnings, it automatically sends out a wireless emergency alert. It will only go to the folks who are in that polygon at the time. So the entirety of Montgomery County was not under a tornado warning. It was a very small percentage of the county under a small polygon in the northwest area of Poolsville. Obviously, that moved throughout the storm, and as it moved throughout the storm, as Dr. Stoddard said, he heard the same wireless emergency alert that occurred in the Kentlands area of Gaithersburg. So from everything we've seen from the data we've collected as far as what's been distributed, as well as what we can confirm has been received, it worked just as it should. Now, if someone thinks they should have gotten an alert and they didn't, there could be something wrong with their system in terms of where their address is located, what they subscribe to. In that case, they should contact our office. They can go through our website and contact our office, and we'll be happy to look into that and troubleshoot it and make sure that they get the alert next time.
Got it. Thanks. And then just the last thing I was going to ask you all is what the county is doing to help community members who have been impacted by the storm. I don't know if this is an Earl question, but
so we are.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
We have working with the Red Cross. We have an emergency response vehicles filled with bottled water, snacks, breakfast kits in the hardest hit neighborhood in Gaithersburg. Our disaster action team from the working with the Red Cross will be out doing preliminary damage assessments in the hardest hit areas. Again, I think that's a one neighborhood in Gaithersburg primarily. That's for people who know the area. It's kind of in the old part of Gaithersburg in the community to the east of Gaithersburg High School along 355. We'll also be deploying a trailer with cleanup kits for families to help with the work that they have to do in their yards and in their homes to deal with whatever damage, small damage that some of those homes might have.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. Those were all my questions for the briefing.
The only thing I would add to what Rich said is, because I was there this morning, Gaithersburg City obviously has their DPW crews out there in force as well, helping residents get particularly the trees blocking roadways. But obviously they're doing some work with some of the neighbors as well. And so I do want to credit. I know I ran into Mayor Ashman there last night, as well as Councilmember McNulty, and so and their city manager as well. And so obviously they're heavily engaged and working to help their residents as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We and Gaithersburg has a seat in the emergency operations center. So they had one of their emergency management director was in our emergency operations center last night as we were working through things.
And one last point to add, our Behavioral Health and Crisis Services hotline is available to support those family members who are in need. Crisis Services, the number is 240-777-4000. And so HHS is supporting all the family and the family reunification efforts that are ongoing, as Dr. Stoddard indicated.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Senior Reporter Bixby.
And, before we move on,
Judith, I see your hand up. You still have a question?
I do. Thank you. Given that we didn't have adequate, shall we say, warning that the system was coming, is there anything that can be done so that we get better warning, or is this just the way it is in the world of predicting weather?
So I think that's an excellent question, is that we oftentimes rely on the watches that we get earlier in the day to prepare ourselves and also to send information out to the public so that everyone can properly prepare. In this case, since we weren't under a watch, there was nothing that was leading us to believe that we were going to get anything other than perhaps some flooding later in the day. Certainly nothing that was tornadic or cyclonic in nature. So there are these times that you simply do not get any forewarning. I think we need to approach our weather during the summer when we have high humidity and these drastic heat indices, that we understand that makes for a very volatile environment in terms of weather. So we should always be prepared for these sorts of things. We should always have a plan, and we should be very attentive to the alerts. The National Weather Service, one of the reasons that they do these very, very thorough assessments to evaluate whether or not it was a tornado and to what degree it was, what exact path it took, is so they can perfect that predictability moving forward. And it does play out in the future. We do see better forecasting in the future. So those enhancements are always being made, but I think we all need to realize that we live in a world where that weather is volatile and that sometimes we will not get it anymore.
Thank you.
What I would also add is just much like the county and everyone else across the globe, National Weather Service is struggling to realize, it's not struggling to realize, but struggling to understand how our changing weather is going to impact their need to do certain things in the future. A lot of things that we do within emergency management or with the National Weather Service are based on past precedent. Now, past precedent is no longer going to be a predictor of future results. And so obviously, I'm sure the National Weather Service will be doing a thorough review of their data feeds, of their decision-making framework on how to issue these watches based on this experience, because, again, their history of looking at data may not necessarily be a good predictor of how they have to do things in the future.
When the Weather Channel took a break from their live coverage with Dr. Stoddard in Gaithersburg this morning, they did talk about how June is the month with the most tornadoes in Maryland. So, interesting factoid.
All righty. Thank you.
All right, so now we're going to move on to some other local news. Silver Spring was named one of the most generous communities in the nation by GoFundMe, the online donation collector. So Silver Spring was ranked number 3 in the nation among cities with populations of more than 50,000. So we were only behind Spring, Texas, which is in the Houston area, and Marietta, Georgia, which is in the greater Atlanta area. That in 2023 alone, Silver Spring residents donated through GoFundMe $47 million in 500,000 plus donations. So as a result of this GoFundMe, we'll be hosting a booth at the Silver Spring Farmers Market on Veterans Plaza on Saturday, June 8th, this Saturday, starting at 9 a.m. They'll have a photo booth, delicious treats from local businesses, and free swag. So if you want to celebrate how generous Silver Spring is, if you want to celebrate National Earl Day one day early, you can come out to Silver Spring, get your picture taken, not necessarily with Dr. Stoddard, but maybe find someone named Earl, and celebrate Silver Spring's distinction. So many people, families, sports teams, local businesses, people around the country have donated from the generosity of the people of Silver Spring. We want to say thank you to them. We've got Jacob Newman on. Jacob is the Regional Services Director for Silver Spring, because we're also going to be shifting right now to talk a little bit about what's happening along the Red Line in Silver Spring. So on June 1st, the Red Line between Glenmont and I believe the Tacoma station closed, which has forced a lot of workarounds to be created. And so that's why Sherry is joining us from Metro today. Sherry Lee is a media relations manager with Metro. My understanding is the Red Line is being closed because obviously there's always work to be done along the line, but with the Purple Line construction going over the Red Line in Silver Spring, the decision was made to the need was to close the Red Line in order for some of the construction work to be completed, and it's a great time for Metro to also do some of its other work along the Red Line. So between now and when will the Red Line reopen?
Well, I will say that Tacoma Station will reopen on June 30th, and the other 4 stations will remain closed through the entire summer. I will say the first few days here have been, adjustments, I think, for us as well as for, a lot of our customers. We have 5 stations that are closed: Glenmont, Wheaton, Forest Glen, Silver Spring, and the Tacoma station. We have a very robust shuttle bus operation in effect, with those buses running every few minutes, especially during the peak periods. We have more than 140 buses. We've got additional Metro buses that we have put into play to try and assist where we need with crowding. And we're working to get more buses out there. As you mentioned earlier, talking about the storms and things, our shuttle buses are subject to the same kind of things. If there's severe weather, There was an accident yesterday on the Beltway that caused a lot of traffic to be diverted. That also delayed our shuttle buses. So, we appreciate the patience of our customers as we, work through these first few days. We are making adjustments, based on what we've seen. One of the biggest issues, I think, and a lot of people have noticed this, is, we really do appreciate our partners at MDOT and State Highways, Montgomery County, in the district as well, in getting parking restrictions and bus-only lanes established so that our shuttle buses can move more quickly. The issue is those shuttle buses cannot move very quickly and reliably and efficiently if people are using those bus-only lanes. So people must abide by the rules and stay out of those lanes. And from a driver perspective, I understand it might be a little bit frustrating, but if our buses don't move quickly, then those people are going to get in their cars and get on the roads. And it's just going to make it even worse for everybody else. So we need people to get out of those bus-only lanes, to abide by the parking restrictions so that those shuttle buses can get everybody where they need to go. Some lessons that we've learned is that, people are finding other, alternatives, right? I mean, you always want to go into this with a plan A, a plan B of what your options are going to be. And for a lot of people, depending on whether you're east or west of this closure area, going to one of the Western Red Line stations or over to the Green Line at Greenbelt has been a very efficient way for a lot of people to be able to make that commute downtown. We also have our limited shuttle buses, which stop at 2 stations and then head straight to Fort Totten so people can get back on the Red Line. And we have an express shuttle bus that is running directly from Silver Spring into downtown DC. We have a local shuttle bus that stops at every single station, which obviously is going to take much longer. So we really want to make sure people understand their options to get on one of those limited shuttle buses or that express shuttle bus downtown. And that will really, I think, help folks. We do have our website, WMATA.com/major construction. And on there, you'll see many of the different travel alternatives. And then another thing I should mention is that, our partnership with Mark. Given this closure, they have discounted fares, a promotional rate that they have been running on the Brunswick line that will get people straight to Union Station, bypassing a lot of this work. So that is also another alternative. So we really encourage people to look at the various alternatives. We are still working to make adjustments. We're working with all of our partners to make some additional adjustments to traffic signal timing. We're getting traffic control officers out at some key intersections to also help with traffic mitigations. We're working with our partners in Montgomery County at the police department, in the district, as well as parking enforcement to ensure that people are staying out of those bus-only lanes or not parking where those parking restrictions are in effect. So we're continuing to evaluate things, to monitor things, and to make those adjustments as needed. And I think as we move along here in the next few days, I think everybody will sort of find what works for them. And, and we'll continue to keep an eye on things and let folks know through our social media channels, on our website, and through our project updates of any changes that we're making, and keep them abreast of what some of the best options are out there.
So Sherry, I know you mentioned charter buses, and I think it's important to remind people that not only are there additional metro buses, people are used to the look of a metro bus or look of a ride-on bus. There are charter buses that you've brought into service, and so just reminding people that you may be boarding a bus that isn't a metro bus, isn't a ride-on bus, but they're still the same fare, the same. There's nothing. You're not walking into some sort of scam by getting on a charter bus.
That's right. Yes. The fact is that, as I mentioned, we have more than 140 of these charter buses that are operating right now and working to get some more. And, we just don't have the fleet to be able to run that, as well as our regular Metro bus service that we have. So yes, they are contract buses. One thing I will mention is that, in the first few days, some of our customers with children who have very large strollers, while our Metro buses are equipped to be able to handle some of those larger strollers, these are the charter buses. So for those with children, we do need them to be able to use the foldable, collapsible strollers when they are getting onto those shuttle buses that we have operating. We also have options for those who have accessibility needs as well. So I want folks to understand that we do have that option for folks too at those stations.
So great reminders of how the different buses work, and the point you made earlier too about with the charter buses coming from different locations. When you have a significant closure on the Beltway, it can delay dramatically when those buses get into place. So
yeah, that was a bit unfortunate yesterday. It did not end up causing a huge delay for our shuttle buses, but it did add a little bit of time. And we do know that these shuttle buses, we have the amount of time if folks want to see how long it will take on the shuttle buses. We have been very transparent about how long it will take, and that information is on our website that I mentioned earlier, WMATA.com/major construction.
So, and everyone should know that at the same time this is going on, the State Highway Administration has added dedicated bus lanes on University Boulevard. So yes, those are the same rules apply as to stay out of the bus lanes if you're in an individual vehicle, because obviously we're trying to aid people's commutes, but that project is a coincidence to what's happening on the Red Line. It is not part of the Red Line project.
And we did have additional bus lanes created on Georgia Avenue to help us. There's 7 miles of bus-only lanes, and we really do appreciate our partners in doing that. I also do want to mention that it really takes a village to get this accomplished, and we couldn't do this without our partners there in Montgomery County and in Maryland in trying to be the most efficient that we have. And of course, we've got the Purple Line, MDOT-MTA's Purple Line project, and this is in part for them to be able to build that mezzanine that will make it much easier for everybody to connect from the future Purple Line to our Metro Rail system. And at the same time, we decided to partner additional work, as you mentioned earlier, with this closure. We have probably 8 months of work that was needed at these stations. Some very complicated work in our switches outside the Tacoma station. And that would have been 8 months of disruptions every weekend. And this just gave us an opportunity to be much more efficient, to reduce the impact to our customers and couple it with the Purple Line work that is going on so that we could get all that work done in 3 months and actually be less disruptive to our customers there.
Yep. I've long been told that the Silver Spring is the busiest multimodal transit spot in the state of Maryland. And with the Purple Line, it is only going to grow even busier and more convenient with all the different links that are coming together there. So,
yeah, it's a great transit hub.
Yep,
bus, rail, everything.
I reiterate your thanks to our partners with the State Highway Administration, with the Maryland Mass Transit Administration, and certainly between our Department of Transportation, your team, everyone has been working hard for months to make sure this works and to gather useful data about the future of buses, bus rapid transit, the value of bus lanes. So we greatly appreciate your collaboration.
Yeah.
So with that, Barry, if anyone has any specific questions about that, or also I want to make sure Jacob, who is on as the unofficial mayor of Silver Spring, wants to celebrate the generosity. Hopefully, that generosity of we will see a what is it? A generosity of patience. I'm trying to think of the right term over the summer as we deal with these transportation challenges. Jacob, if you want to jump in, you're on mute.
Oh, sure. I'm happy to. I didn't know if we were going over to Barry for questions. I'll just echo your sentiments and though many of those who lived, worked, or visited Silver Spring, this might not be surprising, but it's truly remarkable to be named the third most generous community in all of America, and this is not the first year for that accolade. So whether it's to contribute to a cause or meet the needs of neighbors, our Silver Spring community truly rises to the occasion of the day to support the broader community. It's something that I experienced very early on in taking on this role, and have observed consistently during crisis response and some of our neighbors' most difficult times as well. And as Sherry said, it truly does take a village. This is representative of our business community, of our nonprofit community, those individual residents, response to disasters in 3 separate apartment communities. We just saw organizations like Montgomery Housing Partnership and Silver Spring Cares partner with GoFundMe to really galvanize the community, and again, those individual community members and businesses rise to the occasion. So join us this Saturday at the Silver Spring Farmers Market, another place to bump elbows with the generous Silver Spring community. And I'm happy to answer any questions regarding that. I'm going to defer to Ms. Lee for all Metro-related closures, but I did want to give a special shout out to those also in law enforcement and traffic enforcement, both at Metro and MCPD, for ensuring this is as seamless as possible, a change to the normal routines of navigating the downtown and surrounding areas.
Okay, reporters, if you have any questions, I see Jenny has one, but any other reporters who may have questions for either Jacob or Sherry, now's the time to do that. So Jenny, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you. I have a question for Sherry about the red line closures. I was wondering if I know we're not quite to a full week of these closures, but you provide some great information for commuters, but have there been any hiccups that people, either things that the system is trying to work through the next week, or things that commuters should be aware of to make their journey a little smoother?
So I did mention, the issue with the strollers, with the charter buses that we're using in our shuttle bus operation, and we've been trying to message out and get that information out to folks. We have seen people who are using the local shuttle buses, which I mentioned stop at every single station and take a lot longer, instead of using the limited stop buses. But over the first few days, we have actually seen a change in those numbers. So I can say on Tuesday, we saw almost 2,000 people using the express shuttle bus compared to just 1,200 on Monday. So that indicates that people are making sort of changes, understanding what their best options are. Our limited stop shuttle buses had about 4,500 boardings each, and that was up from about 3,800 from Monday. And the local routes actually saw a drop in their boardings on Tuesday, which again indicates that folks are learning that, which ones are their best option. So really, I think that's been sort of the main thing, I think, is people kind of figuring out what really is going to work best for them. And we also, as mentioned, the bus only lanes, they are only as good as, keeping them clear. So people have to abide by the rules and stay out of those lanes. Enforcement is one mechanism for us, and we're doing that. But we really need people to just follow the rules. And as I mentioned, if they're going to clog up those bus only lanes, that's just going to encourage more people to get out in traffic, which we don't want. We don't want more traffic. We don't want more, emissions out there, because, having all those people on our buses, that's a lot of cars that we're taking off the roads.
Yeah. Thank you. Oh, well, actually, I don't know if you can answer this, or maybe Earl or somebody on the county side can answer this in terms of what types of enforcement are being used. Like, are the county police in on it, or what's going on there?
So I can answer that. We have a great partnership with Montgomery County Police, and also, we have express buses going into the district, with MPD in the district and their parking enforcement. So we're all working together cooperatively. We've been meeting with them, discussing areas that might be of concern or issues, and just monitoring things. We really just want to get people out of those lanes, but if it comes down to enforcement and fines and ticketing, that is an option. But we're continuing to evaluate and to work with our partners to ensure that happens. And I think, honestly, some people may be caught unaware, right? These lanes are clearly marked, but it takes time for everybody to adjust, right? Not just the people who are using the shuttle buses, but also the other drivers out there who might not be accustomed to some of the parking restrictions and the newer bus-only lanes in the sections that were created for this. So I think after a little bit of time, I think people will adapt. People will, get used to it, and hopefully things will, continue to get smoother as we move on.
Thank you.
Okay, any more questions for Jacob or Sharon? All right, I think we're ready to move on to the next section.
We're just going to move on to our colleagues from the Department of Health and Human Services for whatever update they have for us today.
Let's see. And no updates for me. Thank you, Rich.
Good morning, Mr. Madaleno. No additional updates from me outside of the previous support to the ongoing efforts. I, too, would like to thank our first responders for all that they did yesterday and they continue to do to support our great county.
Good morning. Nothing additional.
Okay. Rich, did you want to give a small update on Pride Month and Pride Month?
Well, I was trying to get us out within the hour, but of course, June is Pride Month. We had a flag raising on May 31st in Silver Spring. The county flag and the plaza between the executive office building and the circuit court. We will have a flag raising first thing on Monday morning. There are events all over the county and certainly the region. Tacoma Pride is on Sunday, and there will be a large county Pride event on June 30th in Silver Spring. So thank you, Barry. And now we'll turn it over to you for any other questions, comments. Dr. Stoddard has a question.
Well, I have one more update related to the storms. So we just got notice from the Maryland Insurance Administration. They will be doing a virtual disaster center for those impacted in particularly the Gaithersburg area, but this would apply to anyone across the county who was impacted with their home. That'll be on June 11th. And we'll be looking to get more additional details out on that. See if I can pull up just to make sure I didn't miss anything with that.
And for some of the reporters who are on the call, as we gather information, we had a total of 170 people from the Department of Transportation out last night, and we have still 100 people out on our roads engaged in cleanup efforts across the up county.
Yeah, we'll be putting this flyer up, but I'll share my. I won't share my screen, but this virtual disaster center where people can get information about insurance and other things from the Maryland will be obviously later this week on the 11th. So more details to come.
Will you be sorry, I should have raised my hand, but will you be posting that?
Ginny, I'll send, because you're the senior reporter, I'll send you the flyer.
Thank you. I appreciate it. They've got me on a deadline here for this story. So
I will send you the information right now. Yep.
All right, reporters, go ahead, Rich.
Well, I think as Earl has stated before, this was a serious incident. There was a lot of damage. It could have been much worse. I mean, we certainly did fortunate for what in hindsight what little damage was occurred. I think his quote is, "We dodged a bullet out there."
And we have another question from Judith.
Thank you. Just briefly, do we have an interview date yet for the fire chief nominee? Do we know what our timetable is for that?
Correct. We don't have a date from the council yet. The council president has been on his honeymoon, so I'm sure we will have one very soon.
Okay, thank you.
All right. If there are no other questions, thanks everyone for coming out. And if you have any additional questions, particularly regarding the storm, feel free to reach out to anyone in the public information office, and we'll make sure we connect you with the folks who can answer some of your questions. Thanks very much for being here again, and we'll see you next week with another weekly update. Thanks very much and have a great day.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Sherry, very much.
You're welcome. Thank you, everyone.